Hello, I'm Dr. Melissa Hague. I'm a practicing OBGYN. I deliver babies and I take care of women through their entire lifespan. This is my friend Delane.
I'm Delane Vaughn. I'm a family practice doctor and I help women reverse their type 2 diabetes.
And the expert at reversing diabetes is partnering up with the expert of getting babies out of women to bring you information about gestational diabetes. However, we are physicians. We may not be your physician. This should not be taken as medical advice, but just some tips that you might try.
Some information,
That's
some
right.
curious stuff. Do understand if you start making these dietary changes and you have already been started on medications for your diabetes, you can get very sick with these changes. Sick that involves ER visits, and it's not good for you or your baby.
Food is medicine.
Medicine and food is dangerous.
Food is dangerous.
Yes. So if you're making these changes and you've been medicated, you are medicated for how you used to eat. So if you eat differently, you're going to probably need different medications. Have a good line of communication open with your provider. Give them a call when you're checking your blood sugars and starting to see them get low. Have them give you guidance on how to change those medications.
Absolutely.
We are going to share some slides and run through some information here on what we should be eating.
Yes. And again, if you haven't seen the first two videos, we'd encourage you to go back to that because we definitely dive into that much more in those first two videos. But what should you eat? You have gestational diabetes. You don't want to have crazy blood sugars. You want to do the best you can for you and your child during this pregnancy. You need to be eating stuff that the earth made for you. Like Dr. Vaughn said in the last video, we are the only humans are the only animal walking around that doesn't eat what the earth gave us. What do you say? Squirrels don't get tired of acorns.
Squirrels don't get tired of acorns.
That's amazing.
Deer doesn't get bored with grass.
And they don't eat out of the pizza patch.
Yeah, they don't go to the pizza patch.
They go to the strawberry patch. I know I've tried to grow strawberries before and you cannot get them to not be eaten in Kansas. Anyway, what those whole foods do for you is give you fiber and phytochemicals, those micronutrients that you really need. And that keeps your blood sugars from spiking. When we take these foods and we process the heck out of them and make new fake foods, like we see on this next screen.
Frankenfoods.
Yes. Then our bodies see these unusual things, this highly concentrated, highly processed, easy to move around sugar, and it has to dump in a whole lot of insulin to deal with that sugar. And driving insulin down is how we get our blood sugars down. So instead of drinking foods, that was the hardest thing for me to give up. You had to give up M&Ms.
I did have to give up.
Had to give up my sugar and my coffee and my fake creamers. But I am now a black coffee drinker.
Black like my soul.
Yeah. I hope that's not it. Occasionally some heavy whipping cream, but getting away from drinking your calories or drinking those fake sugar things. Yes. So the Diet Cokes, the energy drinks that have zero sugar, all of that is what's going to drive your insulin down so that we can get to the point of normal blood sugars. In pregnancy, if you're diagnosed with gestational diabetes and you immediately go into this mode of eating what you need to be eating and getting your blood sugars in a normal range, your outcomes, we know from studies, are going to be the same as someone who doesn't have gestational diabetes. If you don't do that and you start getting put on medication, that's where your outcomes are different. That's where you get the giant babies and the increased risk for preeclampsia or that blood pressure disorder span of pregnancy and increasing things that none of us want to see, like having to have a C-section and having to stay in the hospital longer or your baby having to go to the ICU. So all of that is what we're trying to avoid by eating what we need to eat and getting our blood sugars down by driving our insulin down.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really important point that people don't realize. A lot of times, and this is probably the fault of the medical community, it's our fault, we tell people this, that medicating for a disease is the same as being healthy.
Right.
And it is unfortunately not.
It is not.
We can normalize your blood sugars with medications, but it is not the equivalent of being healthy. Making these changes to the way that you eat, that's going to give you the same outcomes as a healthy mother that delivers a baby when she hasn't had gestational diabetes.
Absolutely.
Getting your blood sugars down with medications is not going to give that to you.
No, but that's the American way.
It is the American way.
And it's
our fault though. We're like, oh, just take a minute.
No. I have so many patients who are like, well, just start me on insulin. I'm like, girl, don't give it up already. There's so much that you can do.
So I think that that's really important. And then, again, the understanding that the foods that we're eating are going to bring that insulin level down, and that's really the key component here. So you need to look at what's driving it up. Lots of times people want to know, but tell me what to eat.
Yes.
It's really not what to eat. It's you need to stop eating those things that are causing your insulin to go high.
Right.
It's really that simple.
It is. And I have a lot of patients that come into this eating fast food all the time.
Stop that.
That's
what you need to stop eating.
That's going to be really hard to continue and get your blood sugars down. Now you go through a drive-through once a week because you're in between things and you get a salad, but you don't eat the sugary dressing that comes with it, you might be okay. But you can't expect to eat the Big Mac and the French fries and keep your blood sugar in a
After the
range.
Egg McMuffin in the morning.
Right.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
If McDonald's is the start and end of your nutrition, you have some changes to make.
Good news. We know exactly what to fix.
Right.
So let's look at some things that you should be eating.
Yes. So here you are. We have things that grew out of the ground and were frankly processed at home. So I don't have the ability to ground broccoli down to an unrecognizable substance in my house unless I overcook it, you know. Throw in the air fryer.
I could get there. I could get there.
Yes. But in general, if it grows out of the ground and you're preparing it at home, you're going to do so much better. The key is don't add in sugary dressings. A lot of our barbecue sauces, a lot of the Asian sauces.
I call barbecue sauce meat syrup.
Yes.
It's like pancake syrup for me.
Stay away from meat syrup. There are a few out there that are friendly, but you got to be really careful about reading those labels. So you're better off sticking with things that are in your spice shaker, you know, your salts, your peppers, your seasonings, anything that's a liquid, you need to be very suspicious and read the label carefully because a lot of them have corn syrup in them. And that's why they taste good.
Yes, that's why we love them so.
That's right. But adding things like vinegar that doesn't have sugar or using high
fructose corn syrup.
Don't use that. Using oils that are
Yes.
healthy. So coconut oil, olive oil, things that are not highly processed. So for example, you look at a vat of Crisco.
Yes.
Crisco is a highly processed oil. It doesn't come that way. However, olive oil, if you smash an olive enough, you can feel the oil on your skin.
Absolutely.
And that's olive oil.
Same thing with corn oil.
Absolutely.
Corn is not a naturally oily substance.
No.
They have to do a lot of chemistry to make corn oil, and that's canola oil, that's vegetable oil, all of it, versus olive oil or even like nut oils. Like you can feel like if you roast it, it gets released.
Yes. Avocado oil is a great
avocado. You don't even need oil when you saute avocados. They make their own.
They do. So getting your oils from natural sources and cooking your vegetables in those along with the spices, that's what you want your meals to look like. And to this, especially in pregnancy, I do encourage adding proteins. I do have some vegan patients. They really struggle with hunger a lot because they're not getting enough fat and protein. But you can do it if you add enough fat and protein. To this, I might add like a salmon or a chicken thigh.
Yes.
Or even if to get on the cheap, hamburger that I just cooked at home.
I think there's garbanzo beans that are sauteed in there, which actually sounds really tasty. But beans would be another great source of protein. Absolutely.
There you go. So make this at home.
These are other foods that are, again, straightforward. You can see over on the left of the screen, there's chicken, there's eggs, there's salmon, there's nuts. You can see the avocado. On the right, it's, a bunch of green, vibrant colors. The more vibrant the colors, the more different micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, those kinds of things you're going to get from your food.
Yeah, you won't find a more perfect meal than an egg. I mean, really.
Right.
Eggs are about as good as
they're pretty awesome.
Good cholesterol. You need cholesterol when you're pregnant. That's how your baby's brain gets the nutrients that it needs. Cholesterol is very important. In fact, if you draw a pregnant woman's cholesterol level, you will be scared. Yeah. Because sometimes they'll get those things done at work.
Right.
And they come in and say, I want to lower my cholesterol.
Yeah. No, let it be.
Yes.
Well, not only is that cholesterol and that fat what makes your baby's brain, it's also the base of the hormones that you make, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of those hormones. So if you don't have that base, you're not able to make adequate hormones to run you through pregnancy in an appropriate way.
Right.
So,
which is why fat is good. Just eat the right fat.
Right fat. Yes, that is important. So these are all the foods, again, you can see somebody growing things in a garden. That's right. Canned stuff it or, jarred stuff, whatever it is at home. All of those things are great. These are the foods that we should be eating on a regular basis. Do understand that there is this element of our brain that drives us to eat things that aren't the best things for us. And part of this is because 10,000 years ago, or in pre-modern times, whatever time frame, it's not really perfectly 10,000 years or 1,000 years, whatever it is, I don't know the exact time frames. It was probably 500-ish years ago and longer that, and maybe even more than that, but either way, that we started processing our foods more, and that we started collecting food to where it was easier to get a hold of. Our brain has not had a way to start limiting us in our brain from having overexposure to food. 10,000 years ago, the earth did it for us. It just wasn't available.
But now I can Uber it.
Now you can Uber it to your
Yes.
couch.
I mean, I could sit on my couch with my phone and really probably limit my steps to no more than maybe 5.
Yes, absolutely.
And someone will bring me whatever crap.
Whatever food. And it will be highly processed. And so this part of our brain wants to avoid pain. I mean, like the archaic part of our brain wants to avoid pain, seek out pleasure, and expend the least amount of energy possible.
Well, the smart part of my brain.
Well, and how can you do that most effectively? With Oreos on your couch. Really, I mean, like that is, so there is this underlying archaic part of our brain that we have to learn to override, okay? Yes. This is a reward system. 10,000 years ago, there wasn't the safety of getting in your car and putting on your seatbelt and driving to your store and getting your food and having it, abundantly available to you. You were in a cave and it was safe there. And to get out of that cave, you had to take the risk of going out. You might fall, you might get injured, you might get bitten by a poisonous creature, or the thing that you're hunting and gathering might turn and hunt and gather you. Capturing food, getting food, procuring food back then was a dangerous experience. Our brain had to develop this way to incentivize us to get out of the cave, to get out and do this kind of risky behavior in order to keep us with nutrition and nutrient in our body so that we could continue living and being the dominant species on the planet or doing our thing, okay?
Well, it also meant we didn't eat all day every day. Because we didn't have access to food.
You know what else it meant? When the strawberries were gone, you had to wait for the patch to grow you more strawberries. There were no more.
Where the pizza patch stopped producing
pizza, right? But these are the things that we have to learn to override with our brain, because there is not a limitation in our environment anymore. 10,000 years ago, we were limited by our environment. Now we are not limited, and we have to learn to do this with our brain. So recognize we have to overcome this dopamine cycle that occurs in our brain. Dopamine is the incentive. It is the reward that our brain has developed when we eat food. When we eat food, we get a surge of dopamine in our brain. And again, that dopamine feels good and drives us to repeat that behavior. And it does it because 10,000 years ago, it was dangerous to go get food. And we had to have that reward to get out of the cave and go take that risk. So if we eat natural foods, we get this natural release of dopamine into our brain. Our brain emphasizes the importance of the food for our survival. Like, oh, in the spring, strawberries grow behind that rock by that tree. Don't forget that. Go back there in the spring and look for more strawberries. We eat those foods and we naturally desire them. And we eat it in a way that our body needs. And we just get this nice cycle of having this dopamine response, a natural emphasis, a natural desire, and eating the food in a natural way. When we process the food, we take a natural food and then we artificially concentrate the carbohydrate component. That leads to a concentrated over-release of dopamine into our brain, which causes our brain to overemphasize the importance of M&Ms in your life. It causes over-desire for that food, which causes you to overeat them because there's no limit. And now we don't have a cycle. We have more of this out of control snowball effect that's happening. So recognize that that's the part that you have to overcome. This dopamine is actually like heroin addicts, cocaine addicts. This is the same neurotransmitter that occurs in the brain of addicted people, okay? That's why a lot of times we're like, but I feel so addicted to that food. Yeah,
you are.
You are. You literally are using. No, nobody's stealing from grandma to get M&Ms. Like, don't get excited. Like, you're not.
You might be stealing her pie,
but yeah, you would totally steal somebody's piece of pie. Totally. Absolutely. So recognize it's not unlike an addict. You're gonna feel crappy as you pull these foods from your diet. In fact, the last video we talked about having low blood sugars and how you feel. Like you think, oh, I feel badly in those first 1 to 2 weeks. I feel badly. I think my sugars are low. I better start eating.
They're usually not. They're
usually not low. And usually you're feeling badly because you're actually going through the withdrawal from these foods.
But there are a lot of other things that give us dopamine hits, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like what? Give me something. Sex. I knew what she was thinking. I could tell.
Sex. We get a lot of dopamine.
We do. We also get dopamine. We were both talking about in Kansas. It's been a rare day that you could go outside without like bundling up. We finally have a nice day. We both went outside this morning.
Yes.
I went for a jog.
Yep.
She
Yep.
went for a run because
I was more of a
I tend to run less unless people are chasing me. But being outside can give you that dopamine hit. If I read an exciting suspense novel,
yes,
I can get a dopamine hit.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that do it. And what I found when I started changing the way I ate was I was relying on food for the vast majority of my dopamine.
Yes.
Instead of my relationship with my husband, my joy in seeing my kids do something for the first time, our joy as a family doing things together. And as I started to walk away from the false dopamine,
the artificial surge of dopamine,
I really enjoyed other things more.
Absolutely.
But it was a decision.
Absolutely. And that is part of it. Like it is going to feel like I'm not on this huge roller coaster anymore. I'm running a little more in the middle, but that's okay. It's not bad to be there. And you really get a robustness of life. I feel like the best surge of dopamine, my kids are getting old enough to where they're going to leave me, but hanging out with them anymore. And just, that is like my favorite. Like, okay, I honestly, it's been a long time since I've had a lot of M&Ms. I'm like, it might be better than M&Ms. So being around family, all of those things. There are tons of ways to get dopamine surge, but it is hard, kind of like a heroin addict. Like, it's hard to have anything hold a light to that when you're continuing to give yourself that artificial hit of the dopamine. So
it is. And what I didn't realize, because I could blame lack of sleep.
I would just
with my resident schedule, and then as an attending, my sleep schedule wasn't a lot better. I would just say, well, I feel crappy because of my sleep cycle. Well, what I have found is since cutting out
the crap from your food,
I can have a day where I didn't get a lot of great sleep the night before and I feel okay. I really don't feel super crappy if it's not because I caused the sleep to be bad for some other reason. But, for call or things like that, I can actually feel okay. And now the next night I will sleep well. Don't worry about that. But you find that other things in your life that used to bother you a whole lot bother you a lot less when you're not constantly on a sugar high or a sugar
low. Absolutely. If you're in that stage where you're pulling these foods from your diet, make sure that you're drinking plenty of water. Make sure you're getting healthy fats in your diet. Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Those are the things you really need to be doing to make this make the unpleasantness as minimal as possible.
Yes. The other thing to keep in mind is if your diet was mostly processed food and now you're switching to a more natural, healthy diet, you probably need to add salt. Pregnant women need quite a bit of sodium. And if you feel lightheaded and not great, throw some salt in your mouth, chase it with some water.
Thank you. That's what I did. I did that. Yes. It was fabulous. Absolutely. If you want salt, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting salt. Don't think you need to pull it into your body with chips or nuts even.
That's right.
You can just eat salt. It's okay.
And salt everything at home.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're enjoying this, please like the video, like the channel, share it with friends, but more than that, share it with your provider. Let them know what you're learning here and what you want to implement and get their 10 cents on it. Also have them watch it. And we'd love to have feedback from them.
Sure. We'll take it all.
All right. We'll see you in the next video.